I designed 3 stages in this match: Tomb Raider, Dead Man's Hand, and Zombieland. There is a section in the seek bar to take you straight to commentary on those if you're interested in that. And now on with the show.
You ready there, gunslinger? Stand by. Unload, so clear. Are you ready? Stand by. You're finished, unload and show clear. If clear, cylinder closed, holster. Are you ready? Stand by. Are you ready? Stand by. If you are finished, unload and show clear. Are you ready? Stand by.
Well, I am extremely pleased with my performance in this match. A lot of things came together. My accuracy is much better than it's been. I've shot good points, even including the stage where I was effectively shooting one-handed, A to B to C. My reloads felt good, and I didn't have any real serious errors. My speed was okay. And still, though, it was my best complete match with the wheel gun yet, and even though the match was small and low cap was smaller, and all the heat was out hunting or in other matches, I'm still pleased with my low cap win. Frequent watchers might have noticed something lacking, the light strike counter. That's right, all my ammunition went off when I pulled the trigger this time. For that, I have to thank Lance at triggershims.com. So I bought 3 different kinds of shims. One of them was a hammer dog shim to straighten out the bit on the hammer that engages the double action sear, hammer shims to remove the remaining side-to-side play in the hammer, and end-shake shims to more precisely dial in headspace and the amount the cylinder moves forward and backward under fire. So the hammer dog shims were mainly for trigger pull, and they seem to have done a good job. Between them and the last batch of polishing, there are effectively no bumps or changes in the trigger pull from start to finish. It was a big enough change that it was immediately obvious to me the first time I pulled the trigger in live fire. The tolerances on the Super GP 100 are evidently tight enough that the end-shake shims aren't necessary. Even the skinniest shim at 0.02 of an inch, even with that, the cylinder wouldn't close when I had the shims in. The ratchet hit the back of the frame, and therefore you couldn't force it closed. I had an assortment of hammer shims to try, and ended up with the 0.008 shims on each side of the hammer in place of the factory rigger 6 1,000th shims. That removed basically all the play in the hammer, and I suspect, in addition to some of the filing I did on the hammer stop, is responsible for my lack of light strikes. The gunslinger getup was fun and actually surprisingly practical for a damp 50-degree day, even though the overcoat is a costume piece and not like an actual piece of clothing. It did get in the way of the draw a little, though, so it's not really going to make an appearance outside of the occasional match where a costume is something that I feel like throwing on. Probably these Halloween matches in the main. I do wonder if there is a mindset lesson to be learned here, though. Showing up to shoot in costume is a pretty good way of letting go of expectations and shooting in the moment. I'm reading the Brian Enos book at the moment, that's the reason for the Zen-like terminology. So I suppose I just have to replicate that mindset in other matches now, without the help of the costume along the way. And now for my stages. I think I'm going to go in order of simplest to most complicated. So the goal with these stages generally was to inject some Halloween flavor into the designs, and nevertheless keep them fully USPSA legal. So nothing that goes against the rulebook for just the one match, but things that are still clearly Halloween flavored and a little bit more fun or a little bit more unusual than your average USPSA stage. So, number 1, Dead Man's Hand. This one's pretty straightforward. The angles and transitions in the diagram are harder than they are on the stage, the one that you saw in the video, but that's a function of bay size at Castlewood more than it is design changes. I set it up with the wider transitions if I had the chance. I just only had 3 bays to work with, and this was the one that would fit Dead Man's Hand the best. So as we shot it with the 2 rounds per paper, it's not legal. That would be 10 rounds on the paper array before a reload, which is not permitted. You're only allowed to go up to 8 on speed shoots. So it was a bit of a bummer that I missed that change when I was doing the proofreading of the stage briefings. I didn't get a chance to look at the tablet beforehand, or else I might have seen it there, too. But anyway, at least I came up with a decent stage plan to try and game it in the low cap style. Since the speed shoot can't require you to make a mandatory reload after the first one, I was able to shoot 8 on the first 5 targets, so I engaged 3 with 2 rounds each, and the last 2 with 1 round each to get me to 8. Then I made my mandatory reload and went to the steel, which would require 5 rounds if I hit everything. So if I missed once, I would be able to take the 5 steel, and then finish the 2 paper targets that I had engaged partially. Unfortunately, I missed the steel, so that didn't go super well for me. Number 2, Zombieland. All headshots is the kind of thing you can really only get away with at a small themed match like this Halloween one. It's kind of a mean set of target presentations, but absent the Halloween flavor, it would also be a bit of an administrative headache. Even with the 30-some shooters we had, so not a ton, the targets were pretty beat up, and were getting tricky to score. The angled zombies under the port were particularly bad because they were a mess of pasters by the end of the match, and also because the bullets hitting the ground behind them kicked up dirt onto the 2 back targets. So that's one that I would probably do a little differently if I had to do it again. Also, from a design perspective, I would probably move the far left target further down range, so it's behind the barrels from the start position, and that makes shooters take a step or 2 to the left, and therefore kind of go into that back left corner of the stage. As it was, you could get everything more or less from the start position, and I feel like that's not as interesting as having to take that extra step or two and get into that position and maybe use the port in the back wall. And finally, Tomb Raider. Like I said in the title card back on that stage, I think this is probably the best stage I've designed yet, and it ended up in what I think of as the flagship bay at Castlewood. It's one of the largest ones there. It's right in front of the registration shack, and so, like, people kind of hang out there and see it first. Anyway, almost every target on the stage is available in multiple presentations, and almost every stage plan I saw was slightly different, which I think is a good marker of a good stage. There is not one clearly obviously superior way to tackle it, and you get shooters trying different things. I had a delightful time eavesdropping on shooters gaming it out before the match got going, so that was kind of fun. The chalice was an interesting wrinkle. The stage briefing offered an option: either carry it on your person or drop it on the uprange bucket. Nobody on my squad took the drop it on the bucket choice, but I did hear some people talking about it, and it might have been a worthwhile option for PCC guys. You could probably shoot a lot of the stage from the back line if you're confident in your accuracy, like you should be with a rifle, and it saves you having to figure out where you're going to carry a prop while you're also carrying a rifle in both hands. Since it was a cold day and a lot of people were wearing layers, stuffing it into a jacket or sweater seemed like the most popular option, which certainly fits thematically. It's very much a grave robber kind of thing to do, sticking your treasure into your jacket on the way out. Another thing I like about this design is that the natural ways to break down the stage lead you at each position to take targets of different difficulties which aren't located near each other in the bay. But everything is visible enough and the round count is small enough that it doesn't really tread memory stage ground. I think it's easy to fall into a trap as far as stage design goes of building an array of 4 targets that are all right next to each other. And that's kind of, I guess, fun to hose, but I think you can make a more interesting stage if you're willing to think it out a bit and figure out ways to separate the obvious arrays, air quotes, in space. Anyway, it was a blast to shoot, too, which is not necessarily always the case for stages that I've designed myself. I didn't have a great plan for it until I was up on the line, just about, so I didn't gain much of an advantage for having made it up myself. It was also fun setting it up, seeing it take shape in real life, going from nothing to what I'd pictured in my mind, more or less. I enjoyed that process, and hopefully I got a chance to do some more of the stage designing work next year. Anyway, that's all I've got for today's match, and also for 2020. This is the last match I'm planning on going to this year, and so yeah, I'm heading into the off-season soon. I'm going to have a year-end roundup up on my website that I'll link in the description, and thank you for following along, and I'll see you in the spring.
Mr. Slater.
Yep.
Make ready.
All right.
Show us how it's done.
I'll show you a way it can be done.
Show us how you envision this in your mind.
Well, I pictured the stage, just not a plan for it.